Hey everybody, Happy New Year! Dylan Bowman here from Freetrail, and in the first 10 days of 2024, we're going to be rolling out our Trail Runner of the Year award. This is our favorite time of year to celebrate all the great athletes and performances that made 2023 a year to remember in trail running, and this year we're super happy to have partnered with Ketone IQ to help bring the award to life. Make sure you check this product out, super cutting edge, futuristic endurance sport nutrition product, ketone supplement guaranteed to give you better focus and help you rip out on the trails. We have exclusive discount code that you can take advantage of here, hvmn.com/freetrail30. That link is also in the description here on YouTube. Enjoy these interviews with some of the best athletes in the world, and thanks for helping us celebrate 2023.
Tyler Green, welcome back to the show. Congratulations, 9th place Trail Runner of the Year. Good to see you, buddy.
Wow. Yeah, good to see you too.
Beginning maybe in a weird place here, Tyler. The subject of recognition. I feel like you have been the king of flying under the radar. Obviously, you've had a spectacular career, especially like the last 3 or 4 years. You're one of the most consistent performers in the world, but you're not the type of person who's posting all the time on social media. You've been overlooked in a lot of cases for, like I remember at least one example with like you, Roy, where I felt like you were overlooked. I know like pre-race interviews, a lot of the times you fly under the radar. So just starting there with the subject of recognition, the global trail running fandom has voted you top 10 Trail Runner of the Year. How does it feel?
Yeah, that's pretty cool. The recognition thing, Rachel and I used to get upset. We were like, oh, no one's ever asked us to be on a podcast. And that went on for a few years. And I think that's okay. Like, I mean, I think one of the challenges is like, I think I've had a really solid season without like the win. And that kind of affects it's a really solid season, but I'm still kind of searching for that big win. So maybe that will kind of get the eyeballs there, but regardless, like I'm very happy with how I'm racing and how I want to continue to race.
Yeah, well, that's a really interesting point, like being super dependable, consistent performer, but without the marquee victory at a Western States or at a UTMB, for example. But it is great that, you're not flying under the radar anymore, and that, that consistency is now being recognized by the global trail running community. Tyler Green, number 9 here in this year's voting. Talking about Western States first, your second runner-up finish. I was just thinking from memory, who has multiple podium finishes at Western States. And the only ones I could come up with, outside of the people who've won multiple times are Seth Swanson and Nick Clark. You may know other people off the top of your
head. Mark Hammond is another one.
Mark Hammond, another good one. Yeah. Maybe just reflect quickly on the 4-year journey you've had with Western States from 14th place to 2nd place to 4th place, just off the podium. You almost got 3 podiums there, and another 2nd place this year. Talk about the arc of that journey and, whether or not you intend to continue that journey in 2024.
Yeah. That race has obviously like captured my imagination and my excitement for so many years before I even was able to race it. I know many people are in that same boat. But yeah, it's been a learning experience. And I think one of the cool things that I've discovered about myself there is that I can race in a number of different environments. Like last year I was getting really worried because it wasn't getting hot and I wanted like that kind of carnage. And I knew that I had to approach it in a different way. And I think that was a cool like indicator of my growth as a 100-mile runner, as a Western States runner, that like the first year that I did it, I was 14th on a really cold year and knew that I had to adjust my racing strategy to make it work. And I mean, that was something that we practiced. Like my coach kind of wrote up a training plan that was like, you're going to warm up for 2 minutes and then you're going to go straight up a hill really hard, so there's no warm up sort of thing, the type of thing that you have to do on the escarpment, just and how much physiological benefit there is, I don't know, but the mental approach of just like getting out and towards the front early on was really powerful for me. So that was just a cool realization that I can race in a few different ways and not just like hunt from the back. Probably let it get away from me a little bit in the canyons or so when Dakota and Tom got away a little bit, but felt like I was racing smart. So yeah, that'd be the goal in the future would be to shorten up any gaps towards the front.
So cool. Of those 4 finishes, do you view the 2023 finish as your best?
Yeah, that was probably, I never imagined, well, it was always a pipe dream to be thinking of like being in the top 10 of times, and I'm 11th. Though I think like they lengthened up that start line, and it was like 20 seconds that I'm behind Ryan Sands in 10th. So, but there's who knows? There was another course change. You can't get too much into
yeah.
But I think like the time that I ran, as I was running, I was like, gosh, could I get into sub 15? And was knocking on the door of it. And that's just, yeah, I think it's my best run and the one that I'm most proud of, but it stands on the shoulders of those other races.
Yeah. Well said. So then moving to UTMB, for those who can't remember, I'd love for you to just kind of recount the final stretch from Valersine to the finish, because I think it's illustrative of Tyler Green's racing style and what sort of makes you special as a competitor.
Yeah. Well, and prior to that, Baptiste and I were running in 10th and 11th from Triant. Even earlier than that, we were racing together like from La Folie, and it just went back and forth, and I was descending better and he was climbing better, and so it just went like that. And when I got to the top of the climb out of Triant, I actually took a wrong turn, and someone yelled to me, like just some random hikers that just happened to be there, and I had to climb maybe 200 feet back up, quarter mile or something like that. Lost that lead that I was trying to build on the descent, and then started to like bonk and feel all woozy, and just like got my nutrition sorted and got back into descending into Valersine, and was able to catch up to Baptiste. But the goal there was to have a big gap on Baptiste at that time. So it was a frustrating time, but it was cool to at least have caught up with him. So then it was just that at that point, it just felt like one of us was going to be 10th and one of us was going to be 11th. and we were going at it. And so we ran all the way to, what's the name of the Col de Montets. We ran that entire stretch together. Like I just stayed right behind him, because I knew if I could keep it close, I could get him on the descent. And he like took out some food and started eating, and I was just like, attack. And so from that climb, all that first little climb, and then the steep descent, like I could hear him in the distance, hear him behind me, or hear people cheering for him behind me, rather. And then on that descent, like I'd just been descending like so well, so strong all day long, and it felt like a superpower that my quads were still with me and everything, and even on technical stuff. So at that point, it was silent. And I knew that I had a good enough gap that I felt like I could hold it. And then I started hearing this cheering up ahead. I'm like, oh, wait a second. This changed.
It's not over. It's not over.
Yeah. And past Scotty, and then heard cheering again, and ended up catching Arthur at the top of give me the name. La Flégère. Caught him there. But I could see Hannes not too far up the way as well. Or, I mean, he was quite a ways up when I was climbing, but I could see him, and I was like, he's within contact if I can descend well. So that was just such a fun descent. And I was just felt like an animal. But when I got to him, he didn't know I was back there. There were people cheering, of course, that are on the trail. And I like put my fingers to my lips and said, quiet. I don't want him to know that I'm here. And then when I passed him, kind of went up on a berm, similar to what like the classic Jim Zach moment when Jim passed Zach. And and he kind of like goes, ah, darn. and then just pedaled to the floor. That was like right at La Floria. So, whatever, 2 miles out from the finish line, and then just pedaled to the floor as hard as I could go. Don't look back. In town, I saw someone that I knew, and I was like, look behind, do you see anyone? He's like, I don't see anyone. I was like, I think I'm okay. So, but it was just, it was what was so
That's
exciting.
insane, dude. So for our listeners, going from 11th to 7th from Valorsine to the finish at UTMB, absolutely incredible closure from you, Tyler Green. I'm sorry if I cut you off there.
No, that's fine. Just the funnest type of racing you can have, and
funnest. Oh my God, that sounds miserable, I guess. But this is actually something that I wanted to ask you about. Like the difference between being the one who's gaining spots versus being the one who's losing spots at the end of races. You're always the one who's gaining spots. Is that a reflection of strategy or mindset or a combination of the two?
I think we bring two things into a race. We bring our fitness, and that's what everybody's talking about at the beginning of a race and all the prognostications and stuff, but people talk less about like execution. And I think that the execution is where you make up those spots like late in a race, and can kind of eat up people who haven't executed correctly. Not to like, with full respect to any competitor that I've ever passed, because everybody runs their own race, and some people are like going out for first place. And my approach with races is to go from the start line to the finish line in the fastest way possible, and to use my racing strategy to make that happen. I think that puts me in a bind where like I said, like I'm not winning, or I'm rarely in the mix, in the hunt for, or in first place, like going for the win. And maybe that's something I need to dabble with.
Yeah. Interesting. All right. So then the natural question is, second place at Western States, 7th at UTMB, an amazing thing to hang your hat on. You, Leah Yingling, and Mathieu Blanchard all were able to finish in the top 10 of both races. Learnings from that as you reflect here at the end of the year, and it's because it is difficult to thread the needle and do that double perfectly. How do you think that you performed in that respect, and anything you learned as a result?
The biggest learning I had was, in previous years, I ran Western States. That was the goal, both in 2021 and 2022. And then after Western States went well, I thought, hey, let's add in TDS and let's add in UTMB. And I don't think that is the approach that you need to have. You have to have in mind to do them. You're going to do them both. And the training for Western States is complementary to UTMB. So that was my big realization. I think the other thing was just how fortunate we were to be able to spend time on the course at UTMB. That was definitely like the bigger learning curve for me. So being able to spend time there on those trails, on those, just any long climb, not having to drive an hour each way to get the type of climbing that I needed to, and be able to recover in that time and do the other things that I needed to do. All of that was pivotal to making UTMB a success.
Amazing. So you being the contemplative dude that I know you are, as we close 2023, what are you thinking about? What are you meditating on? Do you have a New Year's resolution? And are there any goals for 2024 that you care to share with the audience?
Yeah, I think probably something that we're all struggling with is just like being on devices all the time. And that probably is the place that I need a lot more work with. And so it's not philosophical or anything like that, but I think it does have a pretty big impact of like when we get connected with when we're doing certain things a lot, it tends to shorten the amount of the other things that used to bring us joy. I guess that's kind of how it, like, addiction works. So man, I guess that's the one. It's a little heavy.
No, it's good.
Or maybe it's not heavy. I don't know. It depends on how you look at it.
Athletically, do you care to share any of your goals with the audience for 2024?
Yeah, at the moment, we're going to go to Hong Kong, race Hong Kong 100K. So
Hell yeah.
yeah, I'm really excited about that. I know you've
You
had
say we, does that mean Rachel's racing also?
Rachel's going to run the 33K and
Cool.
use that strength for Black Canyon. Just like a little bit of climbing strength in there. But she's obviously got some serious speed right now from her marathon recently. So those are that's kind of the immediate goal. I'm still kind of shaping this thing, and man, on one side, I think it'd be really cool to kind of pay Rachel back for the many years of sacrifice that she's given me at Western States, and to if she were to punch a ticket to Western States to return that favor. And then on the other hand, she's kind of said like, well, you can, if you're wanting to run it, you can still run it. And I think that would be a fun thing to share the course with her that day as well. So there's a couple approaches there. I mean, I've been saying for a few years now, like, I think I've run enough Western States enough, but now I'm turning 40. And so there's a master's record to chase. So that's on my mind as well.
You get in the top 10 fastest times overall. That is a goal. Get the master's course record and in the top 10 overall times at Western States. Come on.
Yeah. That would be amazing. And also
already setting up my storylines as I start to contemplate my broadcast experience there at Western States.
Well, it's got to be a cool year. So that's a part of it. But I mean, I was 40 minutes faster than the Masters record last year on a cool year. So, maybe that evens out on a kind of average year. So that's an idea. And then UTMB is still something that we're contemplating, but we've got a big move happening fairly soon with Rachel finishing medical school and us likely, not a sure thing, but moving off to some other place in the country for residency. So it's an exciting time. I mean, we're kind of we're taking it a little kind of one step at a time at this point. But a lot of exciting changes on the horizon that I think will be, I grew up in Portland. I've spent some time overseas, but nowhere else in the United States. And that is, I think it might be a good opportunity for some like personal and family growth for us to be out somewhere different.
Amazing, man. Turning 40 and leaving Portland for the first time, potentially. Well, we'll ask you to update us on that whenever you can make announcements. I'm sure there's a lot of trail towns that would love to have you too. I've been closing these conversations, Tyler, with a uniform question. I was just asking you to give kudos or recognition to somebody on your team who doesn't get enough credit for the contributions they've made to the successes that you've experienced on the race course. If you could just shout somebody out to close our conversation.
Yeah, that has to be Jordan Carey, who has been a crew chief of mine for so many different races. And I mean, he basically puts any racing of his own on hold so that he can support me and many of his other friends. Is an incredibly loyal and supportive individual who has, he traveled to Chamonix for a few days to crew me. Like it's that level of commitment. And just so appreciative of his support for me.
I was really hoping you were going to shout out Jordan at the finish line at Western States after you came through for another awesome second place. And I was there on the track, obviously, to do our finish line interview. And Jordan came to the barricade there. And I'm shaking my head like, God, this guy just doesn't miss. Tyler is just Mr. Dependable. And Jordan said, it's time to put some respect on this man's name. So we're bringing our conversation full circle. Respect on Tyler Green's name. An amazing season. Congratulations on number 9 of Trail Runner of the Year.
Thanks, Dylan, for all the work you put in to this and just elevating the sport.
Ruth Croft, nice to see you again. Happy holidays and congratulations for being voted number 9 in Trail Runner of the Year.
Yeah, thanks. And thanks to everyone who voted for me. As I was just saying, I was kind of surprised to be voted number 9, as I don't feel like it's been a great year for me.
It's funny, and you're not the only person, because I've recorded like 10 of these in the last 24 hours. You're not the only person to be surprised that they were voted in the top 10, but you had a spectacular season, as you typically do. You're so consistent. There was some highs and lows along the way, and we'll talk all about it. But maybe first, just tell us how you're feeling, where you are in the world as we wrap up 2023.
So I'm back home on the west coast of the South Island in New Zealand. I got back here end of November after Ultra Trail Cape Town, and I'm feeling in a lot better place physically and mentally compared to say 12 months ago even.
Yeah, I want to talk about that, but quickly, I was texting with our mutual friend Mael Backhausen today, and I said, "Hey, yeah, I'm connecting with Ruth." He said, "Oh, you should ask her. She just completed Vipassana just after Ultra Trail Cape Town. You went into a 10-day sit." So maybe explain what a Vipassana is for people who don't know, and what your experience was like going into inner space.
Yeah, so Vipassana it's not a religion, a rite, or like a dogma or anything. It is a technique, and it's where you go and you take a noble silence. So it's speaking, writing, talking. You're not supposed to have eye contact or even hand gestures, and you get woken up at 4 a.m. and you start meditating at 4:30, and you meditate through till 9 p.m. And you have obviously breaks throughout that, but it's about learning this technique and doing the inner work. And it was my second time doing Vipassana. Every year I go and do a retreat, normally around 10 days. But it was very different to the first time I did it. This time there was a lot less resistance. I actually felt like I got a lot deeper into the technique. And I just find in our day-to-day life, we are always outside of ourselves. We've always got emails to respond to, like text messages, and then this is the only time I think where I've got no commitments, nothing to do except for meditate and be with myself.
No podcasts to record, things like that.
No. Yeah.
Well, congratulations. That is a feat of endurance in itself. You probably know that my brother, I think, has done 12 of them at this point. So he is a seasoned Vipassana veteran, and he's always espoused the benefits that he experiences on retreat. And I've still yet to find the courage to go enter that inner space myself, but it's awesome. And what a great way also to recover from Ultra Trail Cape Town, decompress from a long year and get ready.
I wouldn't recommend going from 100K to 100 hours of meditation 4 days later.
Really? I mean, were you like a little jittery? Was it hard to sit still after that?
I was just jet lagged and just super tired. And so, it took me a few days to kind of like recalibrate. I slept through the gong one night and had to come get woken up. But it just was quite intense to go from there. I think it would have been better to have a few more days recovery.
Yeah. Well, it's a story for a different time, but my brother once went from a Vipassana to Burning Man. So
okay.
That's a different experience too. All right. So actually, before we get to some racing stuff too, I'd love for you to just tell us about your experience in Japan too, because it seemed like a really fun group of people on a little fun adventure and a different change of pace. So tell us about that quickly before we start talking about racing.
Yeah, so it was Andy Cochran who initiated it, and it was with Desmond and Tim Tollefson, Magda, and myself, and we did the part of the Nakasendo Trail, which is an old postal route from Nagoya up until Tokyo, and so we did about 150K or so of it. And it was awesome. I think any of those trips, when you've got a good group of humans together, no matter where you are, it's a fun time. And so, we got to eat really good food, run, soaked in onsens, and we were doing that on repeat for about 6 days or 7 days.
I had dinner at the running event, sort of like a trade show here in the US with Des not long after she had returned. I'd love to hear you just talk about, especially spending time with her and Magda. I don't know how much you had spent time with them in the past, but the three of you are really, I think, talented in a lot of ways, but also well considered and well respected people outside of being good athletes. Is there anything from the trip and especially interactions with Magda and Des that stick out?
No, it was actually really good to get to know them on a deeper level, because I think with a lot of people in the running community, it's just normal, like, hi, bye. at events. And so, yeah, I actually do remember we went into one sober house and we were sitting next to some Australians, and obviously I started talking to them, and they were asking if we were runners, and then Andy said that, oh yeah, that Magda and Des had been to the Olympics twice. And then it was just so funny watching them just did not want to be in that conversation at all. But no, it was awesome. We had a lot of good times. And I think, yeah, as I said, you just get to know people on a deeper level, which is something I always appreciate. You can get beyond the surface.
Yeah. Okay. So talking about running, you posted recently that the last 18 months, really since you won Western States, has been difficult. That you said something about like how you felt run down, like your immune system was a little bit compromised. So maybe just in a general sense, explain what running's been like for the last 18 months and why it has been a bit of a challenge.
Yeah, so it kind of started after Western States in 2022, and yeah, I had issues with iron, and then I'd start training, and I just felt like I was running through mud for quite a while, and then I'd just get these bouts where, yeah, I just get really run down, get like mouth ulcers and everything. My immune system was just a bit shot, and then when I came back to New Zealand, yeah, I started to kind of get some answers on it, but I really had to dial back my training a lot. I also changed coach, and it's just been quite a bit. And then I'd get back into training and then get run down again. And so it was just kind of like this cycle. And it took me probably till midway through this year to start feeling back to normal. But obviously then I got sick again for UTMB. And so it's just been a difficult year in that sense. Haven't felt like myself for quite a while. And so for me, Cape Town was, I finally felt back to normal, just mentally and physically as well.
And did you get any answers as to what was potentially causing you to feel so run down? Because again, like I know you're into, health and, living sort of like I don't know what the right word is, but maybe, like the Vipassana is a good reflection of like paying attention to physical and emotional health and how that is reflected in our day-to-day life, in our training and in our performances. Was there anything you learned from that experience?
Yeah, it depends. Yeah, I could go on for a lot longer about this. But I think a lot of it kind of stemmed from, I got COVID 5 weeks out from Western States, and I didn't back off as much as I should have. And I just kind of kept training through for the most part. And then I went and raced 100 miles in nearly 40-degree heat. And so those two combined obviously was big stress on my body. And then there's also some emotional stuff going on as well. And so I think it was a lot of different things kind of compiled throughout that period. And then also, yeah, that are reflected in my iron as well. Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting. So talking about your racing, I sense that you're not totally satisfied with your season, but I'd love to hear you talk about like that build towards UTMB. Obviously that was the major goal of the year, and we can talk about what happened before UTMB, but you had some solid races leading into it. And just looking at how you structured things, I thought it was pretty intelligent, building up in distance and sort of sticking to races that are well-timed leading up to, what is the ultimate prize there in Chamonix. And, so anything you want to say about like the race that you did in Annecy or the Zugspitz race, a race I actually went to in 2019 and think is a hugely underrated event, and how you were using those as stepping stones towards UTMB. I'm sure people would love to hear.
Yeah, so just because like normally in the summer in New Zealand is when I do my highest volume, kind of build the base and everything, and I hadn't been able to do that. And so for the year, I didn't have like other main races that I would kind of normally do. I kind of had to do, just events that were going to solely serve the purpose of UTMB. And so, I did the marathon at Annecy, and that's just because we were there and it was like my first race back in Europe, and I hadn't been doing a lot of volume even before that. And so it was kind of just a hit out. And then Zugspitz, it essentially served the purpose of running through the night, which I felt was still a weakness of mine then. And then the goal was to do UTMB.
And were you feeling primed going before you got sick leading into UTMB? Like, did you feel like you were ready for a special one?
I think it's always easier to look back in hindsight. And I think maybe I wasn't quite ready. Maybe my body had to put out another stop sign because I wasn't listening to it. I don't know. But I felt like I was ready, but I was also feeling very intimidated by the thought of doing it too. So maybe I wasn't quite as ready as I thought I was.
Yeah. All right. So tell us what happened with the virus or the illness that you contracted in the week before the race. What happened there? And maybe like how did it feel to have that disappointment on the doorstep of the biggest race of the season?
Yeah, so the virus was, I got a cold sore actually, and it spread all inside my gums. And so all my gums were like blistering. And I had a fever and everything. And so I got that, it started happening like the Friday before. And then I was trying to be really positive about it, that I could turn it around. And so was Martin. And with it, he was like, you got to be positive about this. And I was trying to be positive. But then I think it was a Monday or the Tuesday, I was like, okay, we've got to move from being positive to being realistic here. And it's like, there's no way I'm going to be able to run 170K on this. And I still wasn't right. And so obviously I pulled the pin and everyone says to me, oh, like, you're so brave. But seriously, there was no other option.
Yeah.
There's no way I could have raced on that. And so, yeah, it was disappointing, but I think these kind of things, they serve as a good test on how you move through it. And yeah, I think when the gun went off, it was like, okay, like it's happened, it's gone. And yeah, let's see what I could resurrect from the rest of the year.
Wasn't it? It was 2022, right after you won Western States, where you also pulled from CCC. So it's basically 2 years in a row where you at least had loose intentions of racing either CCC or UTMB and having to bail at the 11th hour. Looking ahead, assuming that you're probably going to be targeting one of those races next year, how are you going to put yourself in a position to not have 3 bouts of bad luck in a row?
Well, CCC, to be honest, the previous years I was never focusing on that. It was like, if I felt great, and it's like, I don't know, for me, I normally try to do one race a year, and like Western States had gone well. And so I don't know, I've done a good race. So I was like, I don't need to turn around and do it again, like to try and do it again even. It's just like, sometimes I think you can get too greedy. And it's like,
totally.
I'd had a really good race and a good experience. And it's like, I just wanted to shut the season down then, kind of, and build up to it properly, because that, for me, that turnaround is quite short between states and even CCC. And so, yeah, it wasn't that I got sick before it. It's just like, it was never really in the plan. It was like, if I was feeling amazing and that. So yeah,
you got to feel the hunger going into it. It can't just be like, let's go around CCC for fun.
Exactly. It's not how I want it to be. And I want it to be an enjoyable experience as well.
So talk about turning things around after the disappointment of UTMB, how you channeled it towards the great victory that you experienced down there in Cape Town just a few weeks ago.
So I think a big part of it was going to Japan and just having some fun, because I think this year I'd been really focused on UTMB. So I was trying to bring that fun element back into it. So even though I knew it wasn't going to be the ideal physical training, it helped me a lot mentally. And then obviously I didn't actually have a lot of time in Cape Town to get in a lot of specificity for UTCT, but yeah, it all worked out in the end.
It all worked out. Just another casual victory for Ruth Croft. So as we wind down, any things that you want to reveal to your fans globally about where they might expect to see you next year? Any goals that you're thinking about here? New Year's resolutions that you're setting for yourself for 2024?
Well, the goal next year is to get to the start line of UTMB. That'll be the first one. And then hopefully, fingers crossed, the finish line as well. But yeah, as for the rest of next year, I haven't decided on that. It's just that's what I'm kind of putting together at the moment. But yeah, I'll be at some other races, but not too sure yet.
So maybe just going a little deeper just to entertain me, if that's the goal, right, that's still 9 months away from now. So what are you doing now with the intention of arriving in Chamonix 9 months from now, ready to compete at the world's biggest 100-mile race? Because typically I feel like this is the type of time of year when you're home in New Zealand, when you're like focusing on speed. I remember it's either last year or the year before, you were getting ready for a road marathon or something like that. Are you like doing the speed block now? Or are you doing volume and hiking and sort of getting ready for UTMB in that way?
It'll be more of a speed focus and then transition once they get to Europe more into like hiking and more mountainous, more specific to UTMB. Yeah.
So you'll be home, what, until March or April and then head back to Europe?
Yeah, head back to Europe probably around May. And so be here for a while. Yeah.
Cool. Well, Ruth, I could hang out and catch up with you for a while, but I appreciate you hanging out and just discussing your season with us. And I wanted to congratulate you on being recognized by the global cohort of trail running fans as being 9th in the world. And I've been asking everybody the same closing question, that is just to give kudos or recognition to somebody on your team who exists behind the scenes that has helped you in your athletic journey and who makes contributions to your success.
Probably to Martin, actually, this year. I think, yeah, he's been the one that's helped me a lot in the mental aspect of it, but also, yeah, picking me up around UTMB when it wasn't the outcome that either of us really wanted to. And so he's been a big support this year.
Yeah. Well, say hello to Martin for me. Congratulations on a solid year, even if it is a little unsatisfactory. I'm sure you'll channel it into a great 2024, and I look forward to seeing you out there.
Thanks, Dylan.